On today's show, did Indy get killed chasing after his fortune and glory? Jim Carrey has his next project in the works. And Little Women, not only is getting another movie, I hear they're going to make it into a book. Movie Talk starts right now.
Little Women.
Little Women, I hear it's going to be a novel at some point now.
The Alcott universe, the Louisa May Alcott universe. We're talking about the Alcott-verse.
Shared universe. Raise your hand if you read Little Women.
In high school.
I'm putting my hand down. I did not have to read it in high school, so therefore I did not. But what did I do? I went to Vegas this weekend and had a great time with everybody at amazing Las Vegas. You guys were not there, but...
no, I had an amazing weekend myself, but don't worry about that.
Jeff Snedier, what did you do this weekend besides watch Prisoners?
I met my girlfriend's parents.
Oh, big...
Okay.
Down in San Diego. Whoa. That's right.
Yeah, how'd that go?
I lived to tell the tale.
All right. Well, we just so happen to have Jeff Sneider's girlfriend's parents here in the studio.
Oh, my God.
We do not. John Rocha, you have a good weekend?
I did. Watched a lot of World Cup. I hosted...
Well, that's fantastic. We're going to get started with
thanks,
the show. I'm kidding. No, the floor is yours. I missed you, buddy.
Well, I hosted a couple of World Cup watch-alongs over this new network, FCTV Lives. That was a lot of fun. Thanks to them for having me on to talk about Argentina, France, and Croatia, Denmark.
Do you even know where those countries are, John?
I do. I can pick them out on a map. But I'm a little concerned that there's going to be a Sneider wedding. I don't understand how that would, what was that? What would that bachelor party be like and that wedding be like? And would Jeff even show up? We'd have to take money on Jeff showing up at the wedding for his own wedding on time.
Knowing Jeff Sneider the way I know Jeff Sneider, I would just hope that bachelor party is more like the first Hangover and less like the Hangover 2 or the Hangover 3. This is Collider Movie Talk. We have a whole lot of news to get to, and I was hoping to report on Space Jam 2, officially a green light with LeBron James now being in Los Angeles.
Hey-o.
We're not there yet, but we do have some cool movies to talk about, and we'll kick off with the weekend box office report. But before we get to all that, I want to remind you guys that this episode of Collider Movie Talk is brought to you by Rode Microphones. They have a cool contest going on for all you filmmakers out there called My Rode Reel. Go to myrodereel.com. Basically, what you do is you make a short film, and then you have a behind-the-scenes look at you using a Rode product. Send that in at myrodereel.com. Make sure you get your entries in by July 31st, and you could win part of $1 million purse. $1 million up for grabs right now, and all you have to do is do what you love doing anyway. Go out there, make a movie, make some art. Maybe we get to talk about you one day on Collider Movie Talk, or at least you get some nice cash to spend on stuff in the meantime. Probably not at Excalibur at Vegas, because all they do is take your money. Isn't that right, Cody Hall? Yes, it is. All right, our first story today is about movies that actually made money this weekend, and at the top of the box office for the United States was Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, coming in at a beefy $60 million, but also falling about 60% from last week's gross. Incredibles 2 came in at number 2 with $45.5 million. Sicario, Day of the Soldado, made $19 million on its opening weekend. And Uncle Drew, also opening this weekend, $15.5 million. Rounding out the top 5 was Ocean's 8, $8 million, almost $115 million. Just here in the United States alone. So, Jeff, John Rocha, I ask you a simple question. Which of the 5 movies at the box office, or maybe a movie that didn't even crack the top 5, had the best weekend at the box office? What say you, Mr. Sneider?
I was going to come in last and correct everybody when they give a wrong answer. The correct answer is actually the number 8 film of the weekend,
which is
Sanju, the Bollywood movie, which made $2.55 million on just 356 screens. Ooh. It's just a testament to, in this country, there is an audience that you can count on to show up to certain, high-profile Bollywood movies. A lot of Indian folks living in this country, and they want to see movies that reflect their culture. So I'm never surprised when an Indian film cracks the top 10. But I would say Sicario. Of the top 5 films, Sicario had a great weekend. It was the first one, I think, opened to like 12. This one's at 19.5. That is why you greenlit a sequel, to make more money, not like Jurassic World did, where the original Jurassic World made $106 million its second weekend. This one only made 60. That's not why you make a sequel.
Yeah, Rocha, that's a pretty steep drop off. I mean, the first one didn't get anywhere close to the first Jurassic World opening weekend either. That one doing $200+ million, and then Jurassic World doing around $150-160 million of business opening weekend. Did that have the best weekend, the worst weekend to you? What movie stands out to you about the top 5?
Well, I mean, I was going to say Sicario, but of course Jeff took my answer like he always does. But like I would say also Uncle Drew. Right? $15 million. Who thought a basketball movie with a bunch of non-actors, other than obviously Tiffany Haddish and Kroll, was going to hit the mark that it did? So that's pretty amazing. But for me, I have to keep echoing the Sicario thing. It's very interesting to me that this sequel made more money than the original. It tells you that people went back and discovered this film, either on video or by word of mouth or on streaming or whatever. They found a way to this film. And the first film was directed by Denis Villeneuve. This is Italian. Stefano Sollima directed this film. And I'll tell you, there's a division as well, because a lot of from what I was seeing, a few of my Latino followers sent me some articles from a lot of the Latino reviewers, and they weren't happy with the film. But stateside, or on this side, people did like the film for the most part, although they had issues with it. So this is an interesting division. It made 19 million. It understood its market. It went for it, and it pushed the boundaries. Now, what happens in the film, there's a moment where you can like or not like. It's a big moment, just like there is in Jurassic World, but it to me speaks that they see this as a franchise. They see all of a sudden Sicario is now a franchise.
It went up $7.5 million without Emily Blunt.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a pretty big accomplishment. Yeah. The other big thing is last night when I went to watch Prisoners on iTunes, in the top movies thing. I don't know if that is curated by hand or if that is just the top movie, sales-wise or rental-wise gets up there. Number one was Sicario, the original. So people are going back to watch that first movie before going to see the second, apparently.
Yeah, I think people had an appetite for another Sicario movie, and I think word of mouth really helped with the first one. So I would say Uncle Drew is the biggest winner this weekend because Uncle Drew, it so easily could have come out and made $3 or $4 million. And we would have apologized for it and said, like, oh, well, it's a small movie. It's a fun little project for Kyrie Irving and his buddies to get together and do this movie. The fact that they made $15.5 million, you talk about a market for something like Sanju. How about a market for something like Uncle Drew, where I'm not saying we're going to get an Uncle Drew sequel. I would not hate an Uncle Drew sequel. I had a lot of fun watching the first movie. And for Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, like, look, I understand that it looks disappointing if you compare it to the first one, but I don't think anybody in their right mind expected Fallen Kingdom to get close to the first Jurassic Park in the same way that we didn't expect Jurassic Park The Lost World to get anywhere close to the gross of the first Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park The Lost World had a huge opening weekend when it came out, and then it had a much steeper drop-off than the first Jurassic Park.
Well, then I want to ask you a question, Mark, and Jeff as well. Then why does Star Wars get so much crap? Because nothing compared to Force Awakens. And everyone knew it wasn't going to be, but still, these films come out and they don't do as well as Force Awakens. They get constantly compared to Force Awakens. Why don't the Jurassic World films get destroyed, this film get destroyed to the level that people were destroying the other film, like Last Jedi or Rogue One? They came out after Force Awakens. It didn't quite hit the mark as high as
let's not forget that The Last Jedi's opening weekend, because everybody wanted to see The Last Jedi. Regardless of what you think of it now, everybody wanted to see that movie. Yet nobody who is a box office analyst or otherwise thought that The Last Jedi, even with all that anticipation and hype, was going to get to The Force Awakens. Force Awakens opens, and that's a cultural event, $250 million almost. And I think with this Han Solo movie, that's where you're getting at. We're not comparing. I don't think Solo's a disappointment in comparison to The Last Jedi or to The Force Awakens. I think it's a disappointment in comparison to Rogue One. Because Rogue One came out, $150 million opening weekend. Solo, a Star Wars story. It's a very recognizable name brand. It's still Star Wars. Comes out in May, and it barely gets half that opening weekend.
And I hear that. It's just that people are using that now as ammunition against Kathleen Kennedy. Oh, the diminishing box office returns. And so are we going to throw Jurassic World in that mix as well? Because really, the first Jurassic World and first Jurassic Park and then Jurassic World were the big money getters. The other ones significantly less as they went along. So how is a franchise judged accurately in these kinds of situations? That's what I want to know.
I think the real problem out there is that you have a lot of people writing about box office who don't understand box office, and they just look at numbers not in correlation to their budget. That is what matters. It's the film's budget, and profit and all that kind of stuff. It's we don't know a lot of these marketing budgets either. Those are people just guess at that stuff. So there's a lot of this kind of armchair analysis that I think does the industry and readers a disservice.
Did somebody say armchair analysis? Then let's get to our next story, because that's going to involve a whole lot of speculation on whether we are ever going to get the 5th installment in the Indiana Jones franchise. It was reported by some guy, I'm going to get his name right here. Is that Jeff Sneider and Frosty Weintraub over the weekend here at Collider? They exclusively reported that John Jonathan Kasdan, who you may know from Solo, a Star Wars story, was going to sign on to replace David Koepp as the writer of it. Now, this is very interesting because it seemed like Indiana Jones, we were waiting for a fifth movie to get greenlit forever, and it was just a question of Harrison Ford and Steven Spielberg both liking the script. So then we got an Indiana Jones 5 greenlit because we assumed, hey, I guess they like the script. That's not the case, Jeff Sneider, because David Koepp is no longer writing it, and it appears that Kasdan isn't coming in to just do a nice little scrub and polish. He might be rewriting the entire movie. Is that how you see it? And if so, is it going to be rewritten, or is it just going to be scrapped entirely?
It's a good question. We're not really sure whether Kasdan is coming in to rewrite the script or to start from scratch and write his own sort of story and take. We don't know what direction Koepp's draft was going in. Do I think that this movie ever happens? I think that it will. I think that Spielberg, typically does what he says. I know he develops a lot of projects at once, and it looks like he's going to slip one or possibly even two smaller films in before this
West Side Story. He's already in pre-production on West Side Story, so it looks like West Side Story.
Which isn't a small movie, but, he could always do that, the Kidnapping of Edgardo Mortara movie with Oscar Isaac. I think as long as Harrison is interested in the script, then yes, they will do it. But again, he's getting up there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this project, I don't think it's dead either. I think that there's still a very good chance we see Indiana Jones 5. This could delay production upwards of a year, and it was scheduled to come out in July of 2020. They were going to go into production, Rocha, in April of 2019. That is definitely not going to happen. The crew that was slated to work on the movie has been informed that there's going to be a huge delay of at least a few months. Do you see Indiana Jones 5 seeing the light of day, or is this going to be buried along with the poor knight from the end of Last Crusade?
Well, I feel like we will see it, absolutely. I think Harrison wants to come back and do it. Does it excite me that Kasdan has taken over? No. I mean, the whole thing of Solo and what happened with Solo, like, the dialogue was okay. It wasn't like a great script that somehow was messed up in the direction. So to me, it concerns me that you're placing David Koepp, who has slowly gotten like a mixed review with some of his films as a writer, and now you replace it with John Kasdan. Is this because Harrison felt comfortable with Kasdan's script from watching Solo? Did he feel comfortable, like, oh, okay, this works? Is it because he's the son of a guy who wrote some of his stuff for Star Wars? Like, all this stuff factors into the situation. And what Jeff alluded to real quickly is important too. He's not getting any younger. There are all these rumors about Chris Pratt probably taking over. Is that the direction they want to go? Is Harrison going to be okay with handing the mantle off? Because remember, in Last Crusade, he took, in essence, the mantle from the guy on the train. He saw what the guy looked like. He saw the whip. He saw the hat. He completely imitated. So, in essence, Indiana Jones is already a copy itself of someone else. So, there wouldn't be a shock to have someone step in and take over Indiana Jones, kind of like Dread Pirate Roberts and Princess Bride, and just take on the mantle. We see if that's how it goes down. But I personally don't want to see a 75-year-old man jumping around in stunts doing these things with a hat on, everything. Like, I get it. I love nostalgia. But to me, we're at that point where believability is very stretched.
He'd be 80 at this point.
80.
And I liked him in Star Wars The Force Awakens, but Blade Runner 2049, I was like, this guy doesn't even want to be here.
Are you out of your mind? You're out of your mind. What? Are you serious? He was incredible in Blade Runner 2049.
No, he wasn't.
When I don't want to ruin it for anybody, but when a certain person shows back up again, that's maybe the best acting work he's done in 3 decades.
Okay.
You're insane.
Wow. Yeah, I would tend to agree that Harrison Ford did commit to Blade Runner 2049. Of course, I'm the idiot that thinks he was good in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I didn't think the movie was good, but I thought Harrison Ford was very good as Indiana Jones, which is why I'd be up for this one again. But my question to you guys is, what happens in this situation? Why is all of a sudden this movie not happening? Because didn't we see what David Koepp was working on? Didn't we have a script and everybody said this script is good enough? Or did they just hear the idea for what David Koepp's screenplay was going to be and say, we like where you're going with this, let's go ahead and greenlight it and start to plan production for 2019, and then he hands in the last third of the movie, and they're like, oh, this ends up not being what we wanted, so now we have to redo everything. How does this happen?
Aliens again? Maybe there's like, aliens again? We can't do this. Because Koepp wrote The Crystal Skull, right? So maybe the backlash against that was pretty powerful, and maybe they gave him another shot, saw that screen, were like, no, we're going to get even more crap for this, so I don't know.
I have no idea how to answer that question. I think I would like to see a Fountain of Youth story. That's all I can say.
The Fountain of Youth story. What happened to the knight at the end of The Last Crusade? Because like the whole thing collapses. They leave, they ride off into the sunset. The Grail never gets actually removed from there. Right. So does the knight just live amongst rubble? Does he go to heaven? What happens?
I think he just climbs out of the rubble, exhausted. Big sigh, walks over, pulls the Grail back out, and walks all the way back and puts it back in. That's basically the job, right? Poor guy.
I don't think that this is the worst thing to happen in the 5 if it still sees the light of day and maybe comes out in 2021 instead of 2020. And here's why. Because we just had Solo, Star Wars story, a movie that was predicated upon our nostalgia for a character with a different character playing said person. I think that if you go the Chris Pratt route or whoever would take on the mantle of Indiana Jones, if there is a spiritual handing off in Indiana Jones 5, like what they try to do with Shia LaBeouf and it just didn't work out, if we have that actual passing of the torch or we have flashbacks to a younger Indy that is played by a Chris Pratt, I think that a year birth between or an extra year between Solo and this is not a bad thing to have happen because it gets the taste of Solo out of people's mouths who did not want that movie, and it gives us a little bit more time to decompress from that so we can process somebody else playing another Harrison Ford role.
Would you be happy if they de-aged him like we see? And there's there've been movies, and there's a certain movie that's coming up soon where the de-aging is pretty
fantastic,
incredible,
fantastic.
So, yeah. So would you want to see yourself personally, having seen that movie, and you as well, Jeff? Would you want to see a de-aging of Harrison Ford to a younger version of himself?
I wouldn't the Fountain of Youth in this case because de-aging is cool, but it doesn't make you move any swifter.
Yes, they have to use you as the template.
Right, and so what you see, like let's take Kurt Russell in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, and I thought that de-aging was fantastic. Yeah. It was like I was looking at the guy from freaking Overboard again, right? But I don't know that means that Kurt Russell can get out and run around and do stunts and stuff. There's ways to cheat it in a movie as big budget, but I still am that person that I want to see more practical stuff when it comes to an Indiana Jones movie. I still think Harrison Ford can pull off enough to be Indiana Jones again, but I think that I would rather see flashbacks to a different person playing Indiana Jones.
I don't like de-aging. Yes, Kurt Russell looked good. Jeff Bridges looked good in Tron, but there's something that still looks kind of artificial about it. I think that the way to solve a movie's problem is through its script, not through technology.
Okay, Jeff, can I ask you a question? Have you seen Ant-Man and the Wasp yet?
Yes.
Okay. All right, we're going to move on to our next story. Sometimes you want to know these things, and you have to ask on air. Our next story is going to involve Rebecca Ferguson. You're probably going to see her in the Mission Impossible movie coming out in a couple weeks, and now she is signed on to play a character in Stephen King's movie. Stephen DeKnight, good director. He ain't Stephen King. Stephen King writes a lot of horror, and he's got a sequel to The Shining coming out called Dr. Sleep. That movie is where Rebecca Ferguson is going to be playing apparently a villain. This is a sequel to The Shining. Ewan McGregor stars as the adult version of Danny Torrance. He's the little kid who did the stuff with a finger and saw a lot of weird stuff. You talk about getting your billable hour for a therapist. Have fun with Danny Torrance. And he apparently can shine as an adult, and that's where Rebecca Ferguson's character might come into play because it was confirmed on Twitter by director Mike Flanagan that she would be playing the villain Rose the Hat, who is the immortal leader of the True Knot, which is basically, it's a group of immortals, and how do they stay immortal? You guessed it. They take kids who know how to shine and they feed off their souls. I don't know if they Shang Tsung the soul out of the body, however they do it. I did not read Dr. Sleep. We have two other people who did not read Dr. Sleep, but let's talk about the addition of Rebecca Ferguson to this cast. What does this do for you, Rocha? Does this get you to Dr. Sleep faster than you were already running?
Absolutely. Rebecca Ferguson has been building a really powerful resume over the last few years. Of course, Mission Impossible is where a lot of people discovered her, but she's been doing a lot of work before that. And then you throw in what I thought was, at times, scene-stealing moments in The Greatest Showman. I thought she was really great in that. Really good in that
movie,
as well.
what, 6 times in
At
theaters?
least 6 times in the theaters, and I own it, so I watch it all the time. And I think she's an interesting actress because she has an approach to it that is very character actor approach, even though she's an ingenue type actress. And I love that when you find those kinds of actors who understand what they're doing on screen and their approach and how to create these characters. The fact that they brought her back in Mission Impossible, she's the first female opposite Tom Cruise that they have brought back in a subsequent Mission Impossible movie, and people were clamoring for a spin-off with just her. That tells you how good she is. Put her in something like this. We're going to expand her brand a little more and give her something with, and then Ewan McGregor are going back and forth with her. I think this is a good, solid cast that feels like a horror movie I want to see. That being said, what's Danny been doing for the last 30 years that they haven't found his shining? Like, why all of a sudden are they coming after him now? That's what I want to find out. Maybe I need to read the book.
I would imagine after a traumatic experience like what he went through with the Overlook Hotel, I think he probably wants to not use The Shining. He probably wants to forget the fact that he is able to do it.
Right.
I mean, at least that's what I do. Look, if I'm hanging out at a hotel, and I go to a lot of hotels, and the elevator doors open, right, Jeff? And instead of seeing like people walk out, it's a river of blood. Might not want to shine as much.
No, I wouldn't want to. This casting does nothing for me. I gotta say.
Jesus.
Okay. Let me throw out some titles for you. Some other big books like Dr. Sleep. How about The Snowman? How about The Girl on the Train? She does a lot of these big book adaptations, and none of them ever turn out good. So that's a problem for me.
You think that you think Rebecca Ferguson is walking on set?
She's the cooler?
You think she's oh man, that book is just too good. Let me be in the movie and not make it as decent.
I'm just saying she clearly has bad taste in scripts. I think she's a decent actress. You know, she was really good as Elsa in that Mission Impossible movie, and she was good in The Greatest Showman, even though I didn't like the film. She just doesn't move the needle for me one way or the other. As far as a villain known as Rose the Hat, what was the other option? Jeff the Sock? Like, I don't what is the hat? Who are the hats?
Like, I don't know if the True Knot, I don't know if they name all of their members after different parts of the, you give a different name and a different piece of apparel. Yeah. I'm not sure, but to answer Rocha's question earlier, Danny Torrance, he's got some issues, and apparently he's become somewhat of his father through a funhouse mirror, where he still has a lingering rage issue. He's got some drinking fact, and that kind of dulls his ability. Because if you have booze, here's a couple things booze won't help you do. It's not going to help you operate a motor vehicle. It's not going to help you when you play Halo, and it's not going to help you when you're trying to shine. So if you're trying to shine out there, kids, do not drink.
Let me ask you though, is Stephen King enough to put butts in seats for this movie? Is Ewan McGregor enough?
I will answer that question once I see It Chapter 2 come out, because it's amazing what it was able to do. It was able to totally make us forget about The Dark Tower, which had come out a month earlier. And that was such a critical and box office disappointment, and nobody cares about it because we saw a really scary clown movie that also had Stephen King's name attached. Pet Sematary is also coming out. You have all these streaming services. Castle Rock is coming out in July. Gerald's Game got a good review on Netflix. So it's like there's so many Stephen King movies that are good right now that you forget about the fact that for the better part of multiple decades, Stephen King wrote a lot of great horror novels, and they were adapted into movies that, like you would say, Rebecca Ferguson was in all of them, because all those movies just did not pan out as well as their counterparts.
Yeah, but some of them did. Like Christine was good, Cujo was good.
First Pet Sematary,
First Pet Cemetery. People forget Shawshank Redemption, Stand By Me. Those are Stephen King films. So yes, the record is at times has been spotty, but I think the people involved in these productions. You ask, does Stephen King put butts in seats? For me, no. The people involved making these films make me want to go see their versions.
Combination of Stephen King. This is just me. I think the combination of Stephen King's name with the fact that this is a Shining sequel.
That doesn't make you nervous, though?
Well, yeah, I mean,
a Shining sequel. Like you say, Shining. It's like saying Casablanca sequel. The Shining sequel. That makes me nervous.
I think that anytime you have a horror property, you can expect a sequel at some point, and yeah, you're going to get a little nervous because you don't want the source material ruined that much. But according to Stephen King, his source material is already ruined by Stanley Kubrick. So I think if anything, Dr. Sleep can help right the ship, at least in Stephen King's eyes.
He hated that.
Such a bizarre opinion.
Yeah, well, it's because Stanley Kubrick was a genius himself and not the best guy to talk to sometimes. So yeah.
All right, well, speaking of novels that are adapted onto the big screen, Little Women has seen the big screen treatment multiple times. One of John Rocha's favorite books of all time, or at least he read it in high school. I don't even think I don't think I had to read Little Women in high school.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if I got a separate piece instead. But according to Variety, Greta Gerwig is looking at another adaptation for Little Women for Columbia Pictures. This project would reunite her with Saoirse Ronan from Lady Bird, and Timothy Chalamet is also going to be in it. We could potentially have, listen to this cast, Meryl Streep, Emma Stone, and Florence Pugh rounding out the Little Women. So the 1994 version is the most famous recent one, but there's also one that I think just aired on either PBS or BBC, and is starring Maya Hawke, amongst others. So this is something that I think there's clearly a market for Little Women. It's something I ever cared to explore. I'm sure I would put the movie on and just become just a puddle of weepy goo. I don't know if it's geared to make you sad or if it's uplifting or it does both. What did the novel do for you?
Well, it's supposed to be. It's a progressive novel. It's women at this time when the novel is set, like coming into speaking their mind and not necessarily needing a man to exist and make money and all this. So it's very progressive. Novel set in New England.
Sounds very accurate.
Yeah, well, I'm saying, yeah. But at the time when it was written, it was certainly a kind of a groundbreaking novel. So that's why I understand why multiple generations of women go back to this novel as a source to make, just like Jane Austen stuff, same thing. They go back to show empowerment through these characters. And Katharine Hepburn did a version. Elizabeth Taylor did a version. Then what you talked about is the 90s version. But I'm interested in how they turn this around, because in the novel, and they've maintained this throughout every version, is multiple sisters kind of go after the same dude. And so I'm like, will they turn that around a little bit on this version to not make it seem like that's a necessary part of the novel?
Can you change the novel too much, though? I mean,
well, she's doing an adaptation. So if you're doing an adaptation, you don't necessarily have to hew that close or whatever.
Yeah, but you're calling it Little Women. I mean, I think it's got to stick to the source material pretty closely.
I'm just saying, she's doing a version of it. Her script apparently got her the job and the Lady Bird movie. Like, they asked her to start on the script. She shot Lady Bird. Then when Lady Bird came out, or they saw a copy or screening of it, the executives loved it and they immediately started wooing her to direct it. So that tells you that she has a version of this thing that's a little bit different than we've seen before. Because look, the 94 version is fine and the Hepburn version is fine. Elizabeth Taylor's terrible. But those two versions it's a bit of a boring novel, a little bit. So what are you going to do with it that's going to adapt it to 2010? It's going to make it interesting. And that's what I would say.
Says the Transformers fans.
Yeah,
maybe we adapt the novel, but we have a lot of like rockets and explosions and robots.
Jingle the keys for me.
That's what Little Women need, is little Autobots. Jeff Sneider, does this sound like a project that has legs to you, with Greta Gerwig possibly at the helm?
I mean, it's going to have legs. Like, it's going to do well. I think, given the times that we are in, this cast directed by Greta Gerwig will definitely perform. Am I going to see it? No, I have no interest. This is a boring, stuffy project, a period piece. It's not really my favorite. I don't really care how good the cast is that she's assembled. Greta Gerwig is a great observer of our times and culture, and that's what I want to see. I want to see something modern from her. I want to see her voice, not her adapting a Louisa May Alcott book that's 100 years old. I think that this is the wrong sophomore effort for her.
Can you adapt it in a way that is like what they did with William Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet?
Well, that was the rumor, is that it was going to be set in Sacramento or whatever. But I don't think that's the truth. I think that Jeff Wells over at Hollywood Elsewhere got a hold of the script, and it is set in the 1860s, 1870s in Concord, Massachusetts, or whatever. So I think that she's playing it keeping it close to the vest. Like, she's sticking to the book.
And there's another modernized version.
Not encouraging.
There's another modernized version apparently coming from Leah Thompson, of all people. So that's interesting.
It's just like, it doesn't matter if Chris Nolan directed Little Women. Like, I'm not interested in Little Women. Does that make me a terrible person because I'm a man? I don't want to see Little Women. Sorry.
Well, if you're saying that's the reason, no one said anything.
Yeah. So
I'm just anticipating the nonsense that I'm going to get. This guy doesn't want to see a movie about women.
None of us are saying you don't want to see it because you're a man, and I don't think you're using that reason as why you don't want to see it.
I would imagine this is boring. There's plenty of movies about women I want to go see. This one, not so much. I don't care about Joe or Beth or what guy they wind up with.
You're doing just fine. Well, you know what? We'll give you Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies. How would that be?
Oh, that was bad.
I thought Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies.
What? Oh my God!
I'm sorry. Would you rather
these guys host the show, folks?
Enjoyable.
Would you rather see Pride and Prejudice without zombies?
Yes, yes, I would.
All right, that is where maybe I can reunite us with this, because I became a bigger Greta Gerwig fan over the weekend, because on the plane ride back I watched Maggie's Plan. You guys seen Maggie's Plan?
I haven't seen that one.
It's her, Ethan Hawke, Julianne Moore. Did you see it?
Yeah, I saw it. I thought it was fun. I don't think I can shrug any higher than my shoulders are going right now.
We are going to find something that Jeff Sneider likes. We don't know what that is.
It's not going to be the next item either.
we can't find a news story. Maybe one of you guys can tweet us something that's going to make Jeff Sneider smile. We're going to save some time for your live Twitter questions at the end of the show. Go ahead and start tweeting us right now at Collider Video and use the hashtag ColliderMovieTalk. And if the Twitter questions don't work, I'm going to see if Cody can run to Ralph's to get some Cinnamon Toast Crunch, because we know that Jeff loves his Cinnamon Toast Crunch. All right, our latest story is Jim Carrey is in final talks to star as Dr. Eggman / Robotnik in the Sonic the Hedgehog movie. This is going to be a live-action CG. Don't make that face yet. Let me get through this story. Sonic the Hedgehog, first-time director Jeff Fowler. He did a Oscar-nominated short called Go for Broke, and he's the director of the movie. It's going to blend live action with CG. When I hear that and I hear about a project like Sonic the Hedgehog, I always get a little nervy because we're talking like Smurfs territory. I said Smurfs territory, and those movies were terrible. The best Smurfs is the Smurfs that stays in La La Land. I love Jim Carrey. James Marsden is also a part of this cast, as is Tika Sumpter. But Sonic the Hedgehog, I think it's a property that is intriguing to me. I think that there's enough lore for Jim Carrey, a comic genius like him, to mine and be a little crazy, have a little fun, be dramatic, over the top. He was not the worst part of Batman Forever, where he played the Riddler. I think he was in a different movie than some other people in that film, but I think the Jim Carrey movie would have been better. I'm a huge Jim Carrey fan. I'm going to support anything he does. I think Sonic the Hedgehog could be the interesting play for him. Jeff Sneider, do you disagree?
So actually, I agree with your last point, which is that this is the right move for Jim Carrey at this point in his career. Jim Carrey, one of my favorites as a kid, and that is exactly what he needs to do again. He needs to be relevant to children, because he's making these super dark movies like Dark Crimes, which is one of the worst movies of the year for sure. And like that is not his target audience. Like, he appeals to 10-year-olds, and so Sonic is kind of perfect. Do I think that the Sonic the Hedgehog movie is coming 20 years too late? Yes. This movie should have been made 20 years ago. Okay? I don't know what Sony is doing over there. They're that desperate for IP. Let me read you these Jim Carrey movies. Dark Crimes, The Bad Batch, Dumb and Dumber 2, Kick-Ass 2, The Incredible Burt Wonderstone, Mr. Popper's Penguins. He hasn't done a good movie since I Love You, Philip Morris, which was like 10 years ago.
That was a really good movie, yeah.
He has been on a terrible streak, and this is a talented guy. So I'm looking forward to his Showtime series with Michel Gondry. Kidding. I hope that redeems him somewhat.
And he's a producer on I'm Dying Up Here.
Yeah, so. Exactly. But he's on a brutal tear in front of the camera. I like the Jim and Andy documentary, but that's a doc. It doesn't count.
Okay, John Rocha. I will agree with Jeff Sneider on something. That I think that this movie is way too late, and I don't know if there's still the Sonic games that are in the public consciousness. Certainly not when they launched on Sega Genesis. Right. We still get Sonic in new video games. Is this movie coming at the right time?
No. Yeah, I agree. It should have been a while ago. But people still have nostalgia, so what are you going to say? You know, look, people went nuts at Ready Player One with all the nostalgia references in that movie, so people going nuts about Sonic Hedgehog. There's a market for it, but everything surrounding the film doesn't get me that excited. It's a first-time director. The screenwriter wrote National Lampoon's Dorm Days, and then a couple of Hot Wheels animated series. I do like that Neil Moritz is involved from Fast and Furious, and Tim Miller's
producing, right?
Yeah. As producers, I like that. But overall, this doesn't excite me at all for Jim. And this is an interesting point, which you bring up, Jeff, the movies and that documentary. But if you follow Jim Carrey, you know he's in a whole nother place. And if you watch that Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee, watch that interview with him and Seinfeld. You see a man who is really struggling with himself, with a lot of his transition into this older age where he's more philosophical, more retrospect. Like, he's not just out there trying to do tours and trying to still make people laugh. He's got things going on in his brain. His paintings, he's more political than he ever been.
Yeah, but you saw a struggle there. I mean, I saw when I watched his episode of Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee, I saw a guy who was actually somewhat relieved to not be having to, have the pressure as much to talk out of his ass anymore.
Right, but yet he still did try to perform for the waitress there in the... So there's that tendency is still there.
Oh, he's still got
a natural performer.
I think he's warring with that, like the instinct to perform versus this whole list. kind of higher evolution that he wants to achieve. Plus, you got all this personal stuff that went on with his ex-girlfriend and her overdose and all that went on. He had to go to the court case, but then he releases this incredible speech as a valedictorian. I'm sorry, what speech it was at some graduation that it became an internet phenomenon. It went viral, that speech of his, and so many people use it now to inspire other people. So he's an interesting character. This is so much more beyond Ace Ventura, and that's why I've maintained my love for him. Him coming back to Michel Gondry for Kidding gets me excited. I saw a trailer over the weekend for it. It's on, trailer's been showing. Yeah. It looks incredible, and it looks like it captures all the stuff that he's been going through. And so I'm super excited to go into his mind to see this. Now, Sonic the Hedgehog, I think this is a paycheck, and it's fun. It'll be interesting. He'll bring his uniqueness to it, but it doesn't move the needle for me.
Do you guys remember this character? Because I was a Nintendo kid. I didn't play a lot of Sega Genesis, but I know who Bowser is. Does this character have the same memory for?
I don't think he has the name brand value of a Bowser or a Wario from your childhood. Right. I remember the Eggman, the Robotnik character. Sonic was never as big, obviously, as Mario, but as far as something that sold Sega Genesis, I remember we got Sega Genesis. We didn't have Super Nintendo. We had to go over to Doug's house to play Super Nintendo, but we had Sega Genesis, and we had Sonic the Hedgehog, Altered Beast, and Golden Axe, and they were on pretty steady rotation amongst the three. So I got my Sonic time in. When Tails came about, I felt the same way with Tails as I did with Yoshi in Mario, where I don't need you. I don't need you. I rescued a princess. I found some warp zones, and I did it all by myself. I didn't even need my freaking brother to go with me. Okay? Why do I all of a sudden need a cute dinosaur?
You don't.
All right, sorry. We got a little off topic there. I'm going to bring it back with this. I was texting with my good friend Josh McCougie yesterday, watching some World Cup and some of the Quicken Loans golf tournament because Tiger Woods was playing well. Who had a better apex? And I'm going to spin this into LeBron James now being in Los Angeles. Who had a better apex? LeBron James in his basketball career or Jim Carrey in his movie career?
Oh, LeBron. That's not even a question.
Okay, why?
Because LeBron people didn't go oh, remember when LeBron was good? Remember when he didn't make bad movies for 10 years or have bad teams for 10 years? The man consistently took a team to the finals for 8 years in a row and won 3 titles. That's incredible. And he's not done. So his apex is still going. At 33 years old, this last season he played every single game. Every single game. He hadn't done that in years.
Okay.
It's tough to compare, obviously, the sports world and the movie world. It is a fun question. I think I'd go LeBron here, but you can't discount the fact that Jim Carrey got himself to $20 million. He was the Hollywood's first $20 million man. Sure. So he changed the entire pay scale for the entire town, basically. And then even though he was getting $20 million to do these kind of big, goofy comedies, he went off to challenge himself doing Truman Show, doing Eternal Sunshine. He wasn't getting $20 million for those movies. So I think that there was something noble about that. I'll give the edge to LeBron because you can't deny what he's done in the league. But Jim Carrey, for a while there, he was sitting pretty on top of the world.
Yeah, I think Jim Carrey's apex is unlike anything that we'll see again in Hollywood. Just to be that huge, to just rocket to stardom as somebody that we knew he was the white guy in Living Color, and that's how I knew him. And then all of a sudden, just and it was unreal. But LeBron, such a long history. And when McCook and I were doing it yesterday, it was who had the better apex, Jim Carrey or Tiger Woods, and we took Tiger too. But it's just because doing it for long counts for something. But Jim Carrey in the '90s, man, there's nothing like it.
Wow,
nothing like it.
All right,
what?
I would disagree. I would say Jerry Lewis was fantastic in the '60s. He was a leading man. And Eddie Murphy in the 80s. I would say there has been almost every 20 years. There's been somebody who's coming along as a comedian.
The argument between Jim Carrey's apex versus Eddie Murphy's apex is a valid one.
Right.
And I think career-wise, I'd probably take Eddie Murphy over Jim Carrey. But because Eddie Murphy was he literally put Saturday Night Live on his back before he was even in movies. But I'm saying from Jim Carrey to now, we've seen glimpses of it with somebody like Melissa McCarthy in Bridesmaids or Tiffany Haddish in Girls Trip. I think those are things, those are Comet-like situations, but staying on top and making multiple movies that you're the bankable leading star, that's something that's you just don't see it a lot.
I agree with that.
Okay, we're going to move on to remind you guys we have Collider t-shirts available right now from some of your favorite Collider shows, so you can head to collider.com for more info, or just check out the link in this vid's description. Thanks to our friends at Bonfire. You can check those t-shirts out, and we have an all-new episode of Collider Heroes that is going to be airing later on today, hosted by the sweatiest of the sweaty. He's had a very good time with him this weekend in Vegas, Mr. John Schnepp. And Movie Talk is also a podcast, so check out the Movie Talk podcast feed. You're at the gym, you're on the go, you're driving around. Listen to us in podcast form. You can check out Movie Talk Monday through Thursday. You can also check out our weekend shows, Mailbag, hosted by Perry Nemiroff, and Afterthoughts, hosted by Ryan and Jay. All of that and more. And when you check out the Collider Factory podcast feed, you can get a lot of new Collider shows, listen to a lot of cool different things that aren't just necessarily in the world of movies. For instance, our man Mark Riley just launched the Riley Roundtable a couple weeks ago. And this past week's edition of the Riley Roundtable, he picked up on a vein that we had talked about when he guested for Christian on Harloff and Ellis about his experience with aliens and possibly his friend who may have been abducted by aliens and has seen multiple UFOs. Check out the Harloff and Ellis show and then listen to Riley Roundtable because he has his buddy Kai on there talking about his experience with UFOs. It's something you should definitely listen to. Very hard to describe in detail how good it is, so just go listen to it. All right, now it's time for your live Twitter questions, so let's kick off. Jonathan Peck says, what continent or ancient city should Indiana Jones travel to if we get a fifth Indiana Jones movie? For Jonathan Peck, he says he should travel to the Australian outback. So, Jeff, you mentioned the Fountain of Youth. So is he going to, Panama City?
I think you want to see a movie where I don't know where the Fountain of Youth would be located. Maybe Machu Picchu or something.
Wakanda.
But imagine, we talked about this on a little podcast that I did with Riley and Mark Fernandez. Imagine Harrison Ford. Finally, at the end of the movie, he gets to the Fountain of Youth. He goes inside it, and then he walks out, and he's Chris Pratt. That would be an amazing, jaw-dropping moment. Well, wait, Rocha's got something to say, so let's have him weigh in.
I heard it, and in my head I thought, yes, it would be cool. It'd be tough to pull off. If there's a filmmaker that can do it, it's probably Steven Spielberg. That's a tough thing to pull off and make it work. John Rocha, do you think that could work?
This is my Jeff Sneider reaction to that idea. No, that would drive me. If that happened, I'd walk out of the theater. I'd walk out of the theater, and not because it's the end of the movie. Damn it, Ellis! I would walk out of the theater in that moment.
The movie's over.
You guys know how much he hated Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom. The movie ended, and Rocha left.
Which apparently what you do it.
John, what would
Atlantis? Atlantis would be fun. Okay. That's something that no one's ever really tackled, and we have Aquaman coming, so we'll get a version of that in Aquaman. But it would be interesting to see him explore the lost city of Atlantis or the Bermuda Triangle, stuff that we used to be big in the 70s and 80s.
Triangle would be interesting, since
right?
So many of those movies have stalled in development in Hollywood,
and things disappear.
Maybe he'll disappear. Yeah,
Bermuda Triangle,
and then he comes back as Chris Pratt. Then I accept it.
Right? Yeah.
Then I'd be like, okay, I'm down.
That's good. Hey, John, I'll give you credit for that.
Thank you.
Wait, no. So you're gonna accept Chris Pratt walking out of the Bermuda Triangle?
Yes.
Boy, that got hairy for a second. But you're not gonna accept the Fountain of Youth story?
Yeah, because he doesn't look like Chris Pratt when he was younger. We've seen Harrison Ford when he's younger. He looks nothing like Chris Pratt. If he comes out like Chris Pratt, from
so
Bermuda,
the Bermuda Triangle altered his facial structure to look like Chris Pratt. God, you guys, David Koepp, I give you all the I can't imagine your script was anything like this. I would just like to see him go after an artifact. Is that weird? Like I don't know,
which
sort of. He went after the commandments, right?
Yep.
He went after the Holy Grail. So maybe take a different religion's lore. Look for something in Islam. Look for something in Judaism.
A religious artifact. What is this? The Da Vinci Code? Who cares?
Not again with that.
This is Indiana Jones. The Shankara stones were sacred to that group of people that he was helping get their kids back. So do something like that. They always have some time religion. In the lost city of Atlantis, it's a cool myth, and I'd be up for Indy looking for that. But I think that Indiana Jones, as an archaeologist, is not a guy. That's one of the things that people had a problem with the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, is that, he's looking for artifacts, and it turns into an alien adventure. Yeah. We want to look for artifacts that are based in religion. So that's what I want to see him go after.
A couple more years, and Rocha may be an artifact.
Hey-o.
Well, that just
you'll find out.
Like a low blow.
You'll find out on the court. You'll find out on the court, Sneider, who's the artifact.
Lorenzo W! Exclamation point says, what's your favorite and least favorite Steven Spielberg movies? Favorite of all time?
I mean, Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park and Saving Private Ryan. Yeah.
Okay. Those two. According to Rocha, I don't think I like Jurassic Park that much because every time I saw Jurassic Park 5 times in the theater the summer it came out. Every time after the movie, I got up and left. Rocha, your favorite and least favorite Steven Spielberg movie?
Favorite is Jaws. I mean, that's really difficult for me to. And Raiders just below it. The first Raiders is so great, but of course. technical wise, Schindler's List is his greatest film. I would say that. But worst film in 1941. I guess is the one that I would 1,000% not like, didn't enjoy, and even gone back and rewatched, been like, yep, this is a pretty terrible film. And Empire of the Sun bored me to tears. And a lot of people love that film. I don't get it. It bores me to tears. Seen it 3 times. I'm like, I don't know. I just don't get it.
I don't like The Terminal.
Oh, I like The Terminal.
I have not seen The Terminal. So I would probably say 1941 is the worst Spielberg movie.
I would push back a little. I'd say if you're not okay, this is a dangerous thing to say, but like if you're not an immigrant or a son of immigrants, I think The Terminal doesn't speak to you. The Terminal does speak to people who are immigrants. There's some real moments there, but I get why people didn't like it. But I would say there's moments there if you are.
I won't push back against it.
If I had to live in an airport for a month or whatever the guy, or a year, whatever the guy, did, I think I could do it. I think I could be Edward Snowden. I think I could just like hang out at I hang out at airports a lot. I enjoy. I will go to airports early to dine and just relax.
You're that guy. I always wonder who are these people.
Yeah.
You know why? Where is it safer to be in the world than in an airport? Everybody's got to go through massive security to get in there. So I'm at a bar. I feel comfortable. I have a couple cocktails. I make up stories about myself. You're never going to see these people.
But you know what they don't have in airports? How do you shower? What do you do?
Some airports do have showers. Yeah. Some airports do have rooms.
Or use the sink.
We're not all part of the captain's club or whatever, Mark Ellis.
I just got an email. That's not a shower. Oh, boy. It seems like I've been using something else that is not meant for that.
George Clooney and up in the air over here.
All right. So we have one more question. And this is a good one from Chris El Guapo. And he says, what movies are you most embarrassed that you still haven't seen? For him, he says he'd like to see Vertigo and Barry Lyndon are the 2 blind spots in his career. So movies you have not seen that you're embarrassed about that you're about to tell, indeed, the world about.
I've seen every movie
ever made. Christ. No, you haven't.
He has not seen the Lego movie, I'll tell you that much.
No.
Not embarrassed at all about that
one. Don't see Barry Lyndon. Please don't waste your time. It's 3 hours.
He might be terrible. A huge,
El Guapo, it's
huge Kurt Vonnegut fan.
Okay. I haven't seen...
I know authors, I just don't read them.
I haven't seen African Queen. I've never seen that. What else? I don't know.
Jeff, I've never seen Stagecoach. I got to watch Stagecoach.
It is a big one.
ASAP.
I'll give you my criterion.
I took a film class one summer at Wake Forest and did watch Stagecoach. Yeah. But that was the one, like, we watched a lot of movies that I had not seen yet until I got into that class. It was the first time I saw Stagecoach, first time I saw Casablanca, first time I saw Menace to Society. There are a lot of good movies that we watched from a wide spectrum of films. So as far as a movie that I've not seen that I think I should see, my blind spot would probably, forever it was Godfather 2. And that was like a big one. That was a big one that I apologize for, and I should see it. The other blind spot that I had for years is The Princess Bride. I'd never seen Princess Bride. Finally did take the plunge and see that one. So I think the one that I will admit I've not seen yet is a movie Rocha brought up earlier, and that is in fact what some consider to be Steven Spielberg's masterpiece, Schindler's List. I've not seen Schindler's List.
What? Well, I got to make you watch that. As the resident Jew at the desk here, you have to see Schindler's List. It's
one of those movies. I knew what I was in for when the movie was released. I was a little kid when it came out, and I'm sure either I or my parents would have thought it might be a little too heavy for me. But it's something that I really do want to check out and investigate, because watching the Spielberg documentary on HBO and how some of those shots came to be was really intriguing to me, just from like a filmmaking perspective. And then also the stories of Robin Williams calling Steven Spielberg, pretty much every night towards the end of making that movie just to cheer him up. That really made me happy as to the comic power that Robin Williams has.
It's a tough sit, and it's summer. You're not going to sit down in the middle of the summer for a 3-hour Holocaust movie. But on next time it rains, rainy Sunday, that's the time you pop it in.
Yeah, I mean, it's something I don't want to be watching it and I don't want to be breezing and like cleaning and doing laundry while the movie's on. I want to sit down and watch Schindler's List. Rocha, you're scrolling furiously through.
So I've seen just about everything.
Other blind spots?
Yeah. Philadelphia Story. It happened one night. I haven't seen those, kind of the older black and white, and a lot of the foreign stuff. Although I do focus on Japanese cinema and French cinema, I haven't seen a lot of the Italian cinema, like Fellini stuff or Antonioni stuff. It just has never spoken to me to go see this kind of stuff. So I don't mean to sound like a film snob. I'm just saying.
my expertise is in Japanese cinema of the 1970s.
All right. Well, Jeff Sneider has not seen the Lego Movie, nor has he read Little Women.
I don't care. It's not awesome.
You mentioned there was an Italian fellow made Sicario Day of the Soldado.
Yes.
Italian guy Francesco Molinari won the Quicken Loans golf tournament yesterday. First time since 1947 that an Italian-born player has won on American soil. How crazy is it? Since 1947?
Are we not going to talk about LeBron? Really? Are we not going to talk? The three of us are not going to talk about LeBron real quick?
We brought up LeBron, and he's going to be a Laker. Kawhi Leonard's probably going to join him. The shocking thing about the NBA this weekend to me was Paul George staying in Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
I thought that was...
I think Collider should get season tickets.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well,
Mark Fernandez, hook it up.
A box.
I think we'll probably end up getting Clippers tickets so we can watch the Lakers play an away game.
Smell
every
LeBron.
So
He was here last night.
I've never been to a Clippers home game. Do they?
Oh.
No, I have been to a Clippers home game. I just forgot to look. Do they take down the Lakers' retired jerseys? Or do they not have them hanging there?
No,
or do they still have them hanging?
The jerseys stay. Yeah,
it's got to be tough playing for the Clippers, being like, man, that other team's pretty good. All right, then we're going to do it on NBA Talk here today. Thank you guys for joining us on Collider Movie Talk. I want to thank John Rocha, Jeff Snedier. I am Mark Ellis. We will be back. Same bat time, same bat station. Oh, wait, put it back to my single for a minute. So I want to remind you guys that on Wednesday, it's a special 4th of July episode of Movie Talk. So we're going to solicit a bunch of live Twitter questions. You guys can start tweeting us. We're going to have a tweet later on today. Reply to that. That's where we're going to be getting the questions. So they're not going to be live, but they're going to be, you wrote it when you were alive, and we're going to be live reading it. We're also going to do an Instagram post. So just respond to those posts with your best question. We're going to take the best of the bunch and talk about them on Movie Talk July 4th. Until then, we will see you guys tomorrow, 9 a.m. PST. Hey everybody, Mark Ellis here. Thanks for watching this episode of Collider Movie Talk. You want to watch more? Then click up here, or you can click right here for more great content from Collider. And if you haven't subscribed to Collider Video, do so right now and share this vid with your friends. Thanks for watching.